Hello, hello, and welcome. I'm Spring Ulrich, your host of Light Sprinkles, and I'm so glad that you joined me today. I am covering the topic of the uncomfortableness in grief and sorrow. So, if you have been through grief yourself, or if you know someone who is grieving or has lost someone, then I have a few things to shed some light on the experience that you may go through or that your person that you love who has lost someone may be going through, and some tips and tools that will assist you in understanding them a little bit better, yourself a little better, and that will serve you in that journey. So, thank you for joining me today. So, the first thing I'd like to talk about are the truly difficult points that when you are grieving, you may go through. So, when I was going through my grief experience, I didn't know what I needed. So, people would offer and say, "Hey, I'm here for you. Well, what do you need?" And I didn't know how to answer that question because I didn't know what I needed myself. I was in such a state of complete shock, and my world had been shaken so fundamentally to the core. It was as if a picture had been just shattered all over my floor, and several pieces had just completely disappeared, and I needed to figure out how to piece them together. And it was messy, and there were scrapes and cuts and things that felt like they were bleeding, and I didn't know how to fix what felt like a huge emergency. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do any more than anyone else did. I didn't know what I needed myself, so I didn't know how to tell other people how to support me. And even though I didn't know how to tell other people, I was really, truly blessed with people knowing how to show up really powerfully, and some people really didn't. Some people didn't know what to, a lot of people, most people don't know what to say. So there are times when people say things that are hurtful or that are really insensitive or even downright mean. And I encourage you just to let those ones go, because we can give everyone grace, because most people really don't know what to say. I can't count the number of times that I got the "I just can't imagine" comment. I just can't imagine. And my response to that is, of course you can't imagine, and you don't want to imagine. And that's really the truth, is no one really wants to imagine the tragedy that you've been through or go through that, and thank goodness they're not. And being grateful that they're not. And allowing people to just be where they're at is a really powerful gift, to allow the grieving person to be where they're at, wherever that is, without putting on extra expectations or your own judgments. That's really of service to the person who is grieving. And if you really want to serve someone in a powerful way, one tip and tool to be able to do that would be to just be honest, be real, and just say, "I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And I'm still here for you. I really don't know what I can do, but I'm here. And I'm available on Tuesday at this time. Can I come over? I'll just hold space for you. I'm available during this time or that time." Whatever it is that you can show up and do for that person, hey, I can bring you a meal. That happens a lot. And hopefully it's happened for you if you've experienced it, and that you continue to receive that. And here's what I know, that most people going through grief or serving people in grief, the grieving person usually gets support for about a month. 30 days is about what the tribe and the community really has capacity for, when people remember or think to show up and serve that person going through grief, is for about 30 days. And that's wonderful. And after the 30 days, then what? It can be feeling really isolating and alone. And so that's when to show up really big and powerfully, because most everyone else has forgotten and moved on and gone about their daily life and their business. Because the truth is, if it's not somebody who has been part of their daily life and their daily experience and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, they're moving on to whatever lists and the things that they need to do in their life. So knowing that, hey, I need to put it on my calendar to call my friend or call that person, or show up and deliver another meal, or ask them, hey, what is it that I can do? Can I come show up and serve you in this capacity or that capacity? Or still invite them to events or parties. And that even though the person's sad, if they really can't show up or don't feel like they're in a space to be able to, that they'll let you know, and trust that. But that these people who are grieving and your friends and family who need support, they still really do want to be invited and want to be included, and know that after the 30 days, it quickly drops off. The cards stop coming in, the support stops coming in, the meals and all the support that's truly needed. And yet the person's still going through shock big time. At least for the first year, it's very difficult time, especially during the first year. So the person's usually in a pretty good amount of shock for the first 6 months. So knowing that, you can support and assist someone who's going through grief in a much more powerful way when you have a little bit more information on what they may be going through. And if you're going through it yourself, being able to realize that it's okay if you don't know what to ask for or what you need. It's okay to be in that space. I was in that space where when people would say, hey, I'm here if you need me. What do you, let me know what you need. And that was a really common thing. Hey, I'm here. Let me know what you need. And for one, it was really hard for me to ask for anything because I didn't know what I needed. And it felt kind of awkward to say, well, I kind of need this. Can you do that? Because I didn't know if they really could serve or show up in that capacity. So having someone actually say, hey, I'm going to do this for you, or hey, I could do this. Is this something that would support you? Was really helpful, because then I felt like if it was something that I needed, I could say yes, because I wasn't putting any burden or expectation on them if they actually really were offering. So that might ease the transition if you really want to serve someone, to not just, have it be the filling space. Hey, I'm here if you need me. I don't expect you to really take me up on it, but if you need me, I'm here. Or is it really truly, no, if you need something, I'm here. So may I offer to you? Because if you know the person's going through something and they don't really know what they need in the moment, maybe offering some suggestions might help them go, oh yeah, actually I could use some help in my shopping. Or, I really could use some assistance in having someone just hold space while I go through all the paperwork, or while I plan the funeral, or while I write the obituary, or whatever it is that they need in that moment, whatever you can serve in capacity, and say, hey, I can, I'm going to the store, or I can do some errands for you. Hey, do you need some yard work? In fact, I had an amazing group of people in my neighborhood put together with their church and their scout troops. They had these young men come to my home, and they of course asked me beforehand. They said, hey, is it okay if we put this together for you to do some yard work? And I said, yes, please, that would be fabulous. Thank you so much. And so they scheduled a time with me, and they had these young men come, and they weeded my garden, they did yard work, they mowed my lawn, and that was such a gift. I also had a friend just call me and say, hey, I'm going to come clean your house. And she was so sweet to just come and clean my house, because I was single mom, not knowing what I needed, not knowing what to do, just feeling like I was spinning around in circles, and I didn't know what I needed myself. And there was part of me that felt like, oh my gosh, I could clean my own house, but really I was going through something so physical, so emotional, and on such a deep level that I really wasn't keeping up with that. And having someone else just come and support me with the basics of just cleaning, just getting the dirt out of the way, was such a huge gift that I will always remember her for. And she showed up in some other powerful ways as well, just serving, giving me the service of her time, and her presence was really huge. I also had a really wonderful friend show up for me in giving me her time as well, and she would be there to hold me or hug me or sit and hold space while I did the paperwork for the death certificate or for the funeral or for paying bills or filling out the insurance papers, whatever it was, the the medical bills, all of the things that were on my list to do that I didn't feel like I had the energy to do, just having someone there to run blocker, to hold space, to say, hey, I can watch your child for a minute while you do that, or I can just be in the room with you while you do this, because it's so difficult. It can be so difficult to face that finalization of the paperwork, that if you're up for assisting someone in that, that's a really wonderful gift to offer, just to hold space for them or to assist them in doing it, because it really is such a finalizing moment to be having to write those papers, to be having to make those phone calls and set up the end of life celebrations or the funerals or the things, the mountains of paperwork that happen after death. So being able to serve in those capacities are really, really big. And a lot of people don't talk about that or know about that if they haven't gone through it. And so that would be one way you could serve someone that you love in your life who might be going through that. And if you're going through that yourself, just knowing that you're not alone in that is really a difficult experience to go through, and that is absolutely normal. So yeah, I had another really wonderful friend show up for me in a way that was serving me so well. She had met my husband and I at a business experience together, and so she knew him before he'd passed, and she was also a widow, and so she gifted me a year of her time, and she showed up in coaching me, and that was such a huge gift. It supported me and allowed me to really feel seen and heard, and it was super powerful. I had another friend who gifted me a year of her service, and it was in the area of theta energy work and healing, and that was super powerful and really served me in such a huge capacity, and I am so deeply grateful for that. I was really truly blessed with so many people who showed up in so many capacities in so many ways, whether they were cards that came in the mail or meals that were dropped off at my door. I was really served well by a lot of people. And even with that, after the 30 days, I still felt like there were times when I felt really alone and really like it would have been really nice to still feel like I was remembered and brought into the community, even though I was going through some of the darkest times of my life. And that can be really challenging, because when someone's going through grief, people want to be able to give you space, because it can be very difficult and it can be uncomfortable for them to be around. I mean, honestly, it can be really hard for people to be around someone who's going through such sadness, and to hold space for that. And if that's where you're at, that's okay. And just know that it can be really challenging to feel like you're not being invited to things, or that you've lost those friendships and those connections because you're no longer in that identity of being, a couple anymore if you're widowed or divorced, or if you have lost a child and you're no longer a parent and you're not getting invited to the same circles. There's such huge shifts in the dynamic of your lifestyle when you lose someone, whether it's losing family or friends. There's so many different ways that your life can shift through the death experience. So just knowing that your friend or that yourself may be going through this type of an experience can assist you in deeper compassion and being able to show up with that person in a much more powerful capacity. So continue inviting them to your events or your parties, and just trust if they're not up for it, if they're having a rough day and they just feel like they can't get out of bed or whatever it is, that they'll be honest and let you know. Or if they end up not being able to stay through the entire party because they need to go and have a meltdown and go cry about something, that's okay too. If they need to excuse themselves or leave a party early, or if that is you, that's okay too. So the other thing I'd like to encourage everyone to do is just to be way more accepting and way more forgiving of each other, giving people more grace when they say things that are hurtful or insensitive, and also just letting that go, and also remembering that the person who is grieving, it's their experience and it's not your experience, and only they can be the ones to walk the steps and to make the journey. And that expectations of how they should be behaving, or how it should look for them, or what they should do, or how they should do it, let's just let go of the should word itself, because I feel like it can be so damaging with the expectations and the heaviness that it carries behind it. Everyone's experience through grief is different, and no one can tell you the right or the wrong way to do it. You really just get to trust yourself in your own experience and what that looks like for you. And so please, if someone is grieving, just to be there as a listening ear, just to be there to hug, just to be there to support, and trust the person going through grief is doing the best they can. And trust yourself if you're the one going through grief, whether you've lost a job, a friend, a spouse, a divorce, child, whatever it is that you've lost in your life, that you're doing the best you can in that moment and in that really tragic, traumatic time of your life, to give yourself grace that it is a difficult time and it is physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausting. So just doing everything you can to just give yourself that space if it's what you need. And a lot of times I felt that that's what I needed, was just space, simply because I felt like I was trying to protect everyone else around me from my grief and from my loss. I didn't want to burden them with my sadness or burden them with my story. So I would be very almost stoic in telling my story, and no tears, just being able to straight facts, give them the information, and as if it was happening to someone else and it was someone else's story. And the person that would be receiving my story or hearing the experience would start to cry, and I wouldn't even be crying. And I'm like, it was happening to me, not them, but they would be crying for me. And so I felt like I had to almost protect them or be there to support them in their crying. So it was really an interesting and awkward position to be in. So it was really energetically an experience to get to hold that space. And sometimes I just didn't have it. Sometimes I just did not have the space to facilitate holding space for their grief and mine at the same time. Because sometimes my grief was all I could hold and all I could do at the time. And there's only so much of a lid on the dam and the wave of emotions and experiences that come up that I could contain for so long. So with grief, it's messy, and it's like the ocean waves just coming, and sometimes they're really, really turbulent, and sometimes they come a little easier, and then other times it's just really rocky and messy. So it's just a huge emotional time, and it's all over the place. It's super messy, and that was my experience, is that it was very messy, and the emotional roller coaster was really that. It was up and down and all over the place. So the craziest roller coaster ride you can imagine. Only probably 10 times worse. So, and not a whole lot of fun. Sometimes there's some fun in there, but for the most part, a roller coaster ride nightmare that you don't want to be on. So with that, I hope that I've given you some tools and some tips to be able to show up powerfully for yourself, and to be able to show up powerfully for someone in your life that is going through something traumatic or some kind of a loss, that you can show up more powerfully and honestly and authentically and serve in a great capacity. And I hope that this is giving you shed some light on the experience for some of you. And if you're going through it yourself, to validate your experience and give you some tips and tools on easing your own experience and just having more acceptance for your own experience and acceptance for where you're at, and giving you, if you needed a path to say, I'm doing grief my way, here's your path. You've got it. Because you really are truly the only one who can live your life and walk your path. So with that, I will be looking forward to our next time together and our next episode. Love and light. Bye for now.